Hello, everyone. I'm Himanshu, one of the co authors of Native Base. Hope everyone is having a great Friday. But before we enter into full Friday mode, we would like to have a small discussion about mapping Figma design to React components. Long gone are the days when designers and developers used to fight over all the design decisions. Thanks to design systems and tools like Figma. But to talk more about this, I would like to introduce our main speakers for this evening. So we have Probin, who is a UI and UX designer at Native Base. And we also have Rohit, who is a developer in the Native Base core team. So over to you guys.
Hello everyone, this is Probin here, and I'm a UI designer at Geeklands and also at Native Base. I've been a part of Native Base team to help them build the component set. Right, so it's been a great journey for me as a designer to help the designer and to understand developers better on how they work. Right, and this session we'll be talking about how Figma helped us both understand how things work and also the functionality of Figma, basically the features or the documentation on how we create them and all of the things. Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Rohit, and as Himanshu said, I've been working with Native Base for the past 1.5 year. So, been working on V3 since its inception, and it's a great journey. And I've got a lot to learn from building Native Base V3, and want to share my opinions and my thoughts on how like Figma makes our lives as a developer easier, and how it is improving and reducing the gap between developers and designers. So that's it. We can start.
Yeah, I think Probin is taking it over from here.
Yes. So to start with, let's understand what Figma is. I'm sure everybody knows what Figma is, right? It's a design tool that designers really love. And for developer, it might be different because the way they see Figma is quite different from how designers see Figma, right? For designers, the interface is different. This is how designers see their interfaces, right? We have a left panel and a right panel, where on the left panel we have all the layers, and on the right panels we have all the styling, basically the tokens, the color style, the typography, the shadows, the layout, and everything here, right? For developers, it will be a little different because they would not have the edit access. And to show you, this is how it looks like for developers, right? You have the left panel with all the layers here, but I mean, you can click on them, but then you can't move around things because you don't have edit access. And on the right panel, you have three tabs. The first one is comment, then we have inspect, and then we have export. Well, comment is a normal thing for everyone, but inspect and export, it was as was developers see, right? And under inspect, we have all the properties, the styles, the colors of whatever is used under design. And to export things, like if there's an illustration and icon, we use the export feature. Basically, if you click on any one component or any one illustration, you have an option to export them, right? For developers, we don't have export because we have the freedom to open things directly and just click on them, right? And the purpose of having a Figma might be quite different depending on the team, right? Some developers are pretty familiar with how Figma works, so they would, when they inspect things, they would probably just click on any one element and use the red line to inspect the padding or the margin between them, right? And then they'll refer to the inspection for properties, right? And there are few teams who do not have so much of idea on how Figma works, so we have Spec for them, and telling them how and what the specifications are for every single elements used inside a component. right? So this is the basic idea of how developers might use Figma as a tool to understand how things are placed inside the design file. Right? Then to basically to start with, Figma has multiple features of things that help designers and developers both. The first one is obviously the foundation. Right, foundation basically is your colors, your textiles, your shadows, and the layout that's basically present in all the screens or on all the things that you design on the Figma file. Right, so what we basically start with is adding the colors to the Figma file. We basically make a color palette like this and have this added to the color style that's here in this right panel. So you might see all of this under every color style as primary 50, primary 100, till primary 900. Right? And then we follow the same thing for all the other colors, from primary to all the extended color palette that we have. We also have type style. Same thing how the color style works. We added to the right panel here, and this helps us to get things done faster. So suppose if I'm using any component, I can go to any one element and say I want to use a text style called MD16. So I'll just click on text style here, go to the drop down and just click on this one. And because this is on the token on the foundation panel, it'll just populate here and then show me what I have to click on. Right. Same thing with colors also. I have an option to choose colors from the foundation style. We have multiple color tokens to choose from. Right now it's under text, so yeah. So this is about foundation. Then we have components. There might be different kind of components, and there might be different kind of settings for every component. Right. To start with, we have alerts right here, and the main thing that designer has to focus on is how the auto layout works. Right. So just to understand things here, we'll go in details and see how this works here. So suppose if this whole thing is a component, we might have different elements inside. So this text, this header, this body text, and this icon, right? And every single elements here will have different properties. The first one obviously is the color style and the type style. So every the element here is linked to either the text style and also the type style. Right? Then we have the color background, which we have used. Another thing, which is the most important that I would say, is the auto layout feature, and this is what it make difference for developers to use. Right. So if you look at this element inside, it says hug content. Or let me just detach this first and see. So okay, so this element here is called fixed. Basically, the whole container is fixed. So if you just move around, nothing changes, right? The container inside is hug. Okay, so there are two things: fill container and hug container. Right? If you look at the settings here, just hug container and fill container. Right? Hug basically is something which hugs the content. So if the container is outside, and if I say hug content, it will basically hug the content inside, which is this layer. So now if I change this layer, the container outside is basically hugging this, right? And regardless of whatever I do, it'll stick to that only, and also maintaining its padding, which is under settings as well. So we have the horizontal and vertical padding on here, and this is the space between, which is basically spacing between the header and the body text. Right. So right now it's called fixed. By default, like if you keep changing this, it will get fixed. Right. But if you want, you'll have to keep changing it to her content. Right. Now, if you have noticed this, that like regardless of me changing the container outside, the text doesn't change. The text doesn't change. That's because the text is fixed again. So I have to go inside layer to an inside layer here. Select both of them, and from fix, I'll say fill container. Fill container is different from hug content. Hug content is something which hugs the content from outside to inside, and fill container is something which um, basically fills the container from inside to outside. So now the text is a fill container which is filling the container of outside, like this container here, this group layered, right? Now because this is filling the whole container, I could just like play around with this and see, okay, this is not happening. But this has to be hug fill container as well, because this has to fill the container outside. So instead of hug, I would say fill container here. I'd also make sure that this is fill container, this is fill container. Okay, they are fill. And if I just stretch them now, see how the text is changing its position. Basically, it's in auto layout, right? This is not changing because this might be fixed as well. Yeah, this is fixed, so I'll just change it to fill container, right? Maybe Rohit can tell us how he would use this element now to inspect and code them.
Yeah, hi. So, like what you've shown is really close to how we actually code in our files. So we see, from you guys, we get this file, and with edit option not available for us. I don't know why designers don't trust developers,
Yeah,
but
because you
yeah.
might move around things.
Yeah, that's there. So what we see, according previously, everything was absolutely positioned, right? And then we have to see like this has this much padding from the right, and this much gap from the right border, and we have to think about how we will place what will be the first element in the tree, then what will go inside that, because we code in relative layout, and like it's different from absolutely positioning everything. So basically what we do is, when with the new Figma updates, we just we can there are various things that we can do. We can simply inspect any given component. Like if you click on "we are going live in July," actually the whole alert before that. So we'll see it like it's a element that encloses everything. So first we'll create a div maybe in web. So we create a div, and one thing that Figma does for us is it creates the style for that, and we don't have to even think about like how to style that particular element, and just we can copy paste this and use in our code, and that does our work. Then we can go inside that component, like you can click on that icon, and it has its own set of properties, like how much margin or how much like here it's showing order one, I think flex none. Okay, info, yeah, so it gives its width and height, so you can directly write this use this property from the css file. You can also, I think there's a multiple options, like for Android it shows XML files. Yeah, so it does a lot of work that we had to previously do to make simpler designs, and like wherever the complexities are there, developers are needed, but this makes our life lot easier. So
Right,
yeah, most of the things you already cover about, like how we see the padding, like how we see the guidelines through Figma.
right,
So that's the only thing that we do after you create the design, and the
right,
rest of the thing is a plain code editor and a screen that showcases that code.
right. So basically, for designers, if you have an auto layout, it makes up the whole design system. I mean, not the whole design system, but it fixes most of our things that we used to worry about.
Yeah,
But other than having the auto layout, we also have certain things to take care of. That includes the state, because states are very important, right? We have maybe we'll go to input field and or buttons and see how we have states for every single element. Say suppose for a button, because there's a different interaction involved for a button. We have say default button, then we have a disable button, and then it goes on depending on how you want the users to interact, right? We have pressed, this is hover, this is pressed. We also have focus and the loading one. For designers, what we do is that we collect all of them together, design all of them together, make them a component, and assign them a property. Say suppose for the primary button, we have this many properties to uh, assign to the action, which is primary, secondary, tertiary. Then we have state, We have all the states mentioned here. We have a different kind of icons, leading icon, trailing icon, which comes on back and front. Then we have different sizes and theme. So basically, if say suppose a developer want to use it, they can also, um, or if anyone, any users, basically, I don't developers can do this, but if a user will want to use the property, then they could just go to the right panel here, make an instant of this, and then go to the dropdown and see how every design works or design looks like.
Yeah, we can directly copy this, even every React component. Like if you talk in terms of React, it takes a prop, it takes props, and similarly, like in native is also you have the similar props, and developers can directly choose like, I okay here it's action is secondary, like, and he can pass action equal to secondary, and that straight away works.
Right,
So this makes a lot of sense.
right. And also the property panel, you have all the features. Like if you click on this and see all the features, okay, this is the property that you see here. Right. There's another thing that Figma have recently introduced as something called Boolean feature, where I have an example of the Boolean. So this is how the previous native base Figma looked like. Right? We have around 432 variants, and then we have cut it down to 144 variants right now, and that's because of the Boolean feature. Because developer or the even designers do not need so many properties or designs to show when it can be just concluded in this many file, and that's happening because of the Boolean feature. I'll show how it works. So suppose I take a component set here, a button. You might see two things here, that under the layer we have leading icon and trailing icon. Right? I'll just enable this, both of them. Okay. So in actual, the button looks like this, right? We have all the properties coming in together. And what we as a designer did now is selected all the leading icon, right? And assign them a layer property, a Boolean feature called leading icon. I've named them a leading icon here. And once I name them, now if I copy one of this button and see how the Boolean feature works, see this is how it shows, because I've named it trailing icon, leading icon. It shows me in toggle. And by default, it will show me. So now I'll just detach them, add it again. Because so if I add a layer boolean, by default it will show me true, because it's there, right? So I'll say show leading icon,
So,
right?
Probin, I
And
have a question here.
yeah,
So, from a developer perspective, like the icon can change, right? And user, like I can want like here it's a plus icon. Maybe I want a minus icon or a home icon.
right.
So, how does that? How do you do that? How do you change those icons based on like in the design file? Like,
All right. So for designers, we can also assign a boolean feature here on the same thing. So for every icons, if you click, I'll select all the similar one. So and have a Boolean feature here, which is the icon name. It's called add right now. Or you
okay.
can change them directly, like if you do not want to click on this and change. But if you want to show it on this properties, you'll have to go to every single icons, click on this to multi-select all of the same icons, and assign them a Boolean feature here as well. So maybe I'll just name them leading icon change, right?
Hmm.
Property. Now, because I've made them a boolean, I'll see leading icon uh, change here, which I just created. Now if I go here, I go to leading icon, and I'll just type the icon name that is needed here, say like icon favorite. That's how you choose the icon
Okay.
here. Same thing with this, because this is a very long, there's too many components to choose from, right? You can't change each of them individually. Like you can't go to one component and say
Yeah.
like or favorite button. So what I can do is, because I've made this boolean feature, I'll go to the main component set, which is the outer one here with 144 variants. I'll go to leading icon change here, click on this, and change the icon from here, the value from here. So probably I'll just say favorite and changes on all of them.
This is really nice.
Okay, I'm not sure how much of Boolean feature affects in terms of development. Have you faced anything till now? Have
So,
you seen any feature?
like what we do, if a button we don't pass any, like if you are calling it leading icon. So if you don't pass a leading icon in your in your code, then
Hmm.
it automatically takes it as a like kind of a boolean. It won't render it. It won't show it in the design. And
Okay.
there are booleans as well, like in a button component in native is we have is loading, that's a boolean. So based on that, a spinner will appear on the right side or on the left side,
Hmm.
based on the user's design. So that way we do it, this boolean property in design.
Right. For developers, it was mostly about reducing the file sizes because after a certain stage, there's a limit of 1,000 component that you can create in one. So it's better to have it
Mhm.
like lesser
Yeah.
than what the Figma provides. So just to cut it down and have a more good experience, we have used this feature.
This seems like a really useful feature. But now that Rohit mentions loading states, can we talk about how we do that in design? Like if we want to show loading states with our buttons?
So basically, for loading, we treat them as state only, like how we treat hover, pressed, active, and focus. We treat loading as state itself, and we have a separate design assigned to this. This does not have leading icon or a trailing icon. Like for default, but suppose I'll just drag it here and see how the instance work. See here, it doesn't show leading icon, trailing icon because I did not assign any boolean feature to this. Whereas for this, it shows trailing icon, leading icon here. Right. So when I'm doing the Boolean feature, I would not assign anything to this one because it doesn't make sense, right? In terms of the loader. By default, in terms of functionality, also by default, it's going to have a spin and then text for sure. Right. Now, if Boolean feature, it might not serve the purpose of what we actually want in the loader of having a spinner. So not assigning Boolean feature to this and having it for all. But like if you also see the properties here, you might not see the leading icon, trailing icon here.
Okay. So yeah, I think loading is considered as a state here in the design. Is it the same with in our code, Rohit?
Yeah, loading is a state, but it takes in a boolean. So it brings two words together. So for designers, like a boolean is something else, maybe till now.
Yeah,
And
that might be
yeah,
a little bit confusing. Boolean is a different concept. Like it's a very generic concept in programming. But
hmm.
yeah, I think we
It
understand.
can mean a number of things, right? And
Yeah.
that's what is happening. I think
Okay.
Probin is.
Yeah, there's some issue on Robin's side. Okay. Until then, Rohit, would you like to continue with other things like how you use Figma to?
So, like I already mentioned, most of the things that Figma is providing now uh, helps a lot. Like it already started providing stacks, and like we when we were creating native base, like stack was a major requirement. Many people asked for it, and we also faced like we need stacks in our layout components, that like because it makes a lot of sense, because most of the things are uh, aligned and are spaced equally, right, in your design. And like having a stack as a layout in Figma also, that improved like code to design interchangeability, or whatever you can say, that helped a lot. Maybe Provin can show us about stack layout, even if he has some ideas.
The you're talking about this one, right? If
Uh,
we can stack it horizontally or
no,
vertically.
I think there's a layout, right?
Yeah,
In the auto layout and absolute. There's a stack layout even. Uh,
the absolute positioning.
uh, can you hear me, brother?
I can hear you.
Yeah. So there are different layouts, right? Or in wherever you choose auto layout,
Hmm.
there is another option to choose stack.
Right,
As
right, right. Okay, fine. So
yeah.
now, say suppose everything is an auto layout here, right?
Mhm.
The elements inside is stacked horizontally here, right? Okay, let me show with these two elements. Say suppose if I want to auto layout these two together
Yeah.
in a group, I click on both of them first and say auto layout, right? And
Yeah.
both of them are in auto layout with certain properties that's there by default. The space between is 8. I can reduce or increase it. The space between, then the value changes here, right? And it's stacked horizontally right now. If I want to change the position, have it vertically stacked, I'll change the direction from horizontal to vertical here.
So if I add a third component here,
Yeah.
like, so will that space be equal in all of them between them?
Yes, it will be
Yeah.
equal.
Nice.
Yeah. So because they are in same group right now, they are in same frame.
Mhm.
The if what like whatever I add, it will assign itself to the same properties that's added here. Right now it's
Okay, it's a
8. So
part of auto layout. Yeah.
yeah, it's a part of auto layout.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Rohit. I think, yeah, this has been very useful for us. Like we
Yeah.
have edge stack and V stack. So basically,
And
this is
this,
edge stack in native base, this
yeah,
right?
this will
Yeah,
directly map to native, right?
yeah, this is great.
Because also because I think everything is made of a box component here. So suppose if I want to have different spacing between this and this, like
Mhm.
this two group and this two group, I'll have to have different frames for this. Like suppose only for this two thing, I'll have another auto layout, and then for this three, I'll have another auto layout here, and assign different space between on each of them. So here I can add 20. Right? So this makes this different from how it looks like here. So suppose here I'll add 40.
Nice.
So everything is based on grouping and how which layer you want uh, to look equal. I mean, which layer you want lesser spacing and which layer you want more spacing.
Yeah, makes sense.
There's also a new feature on Figma that they have recently added. It's called the absolute positioning. Before, if I wanted to suppose I wanted to add a badge here, I'll just put a badge component first. And suppose I want to stick this inside this, or maybe just inside one button. Have it on the top here somewhere, right, as a badge. Probably I don't know if function wise it makes sense, but if it's an avatar also or any card, if I want it inside this, right? If I drag it inside this, well, it's not an auto layout. I'll use the one with auto layout. Yeah, just both of them. Suppose I want to drag it inside here, by default it's going to stack along with this,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's holding to the auto layout feature that's assigned to these two buttons. But if I just click on this info and say absolute positioning, this will actually like position wherever it is right now, absolutely, obviously, and I can move around things and then place it wherever I want,
Oh,
and constrain it under the same layer also, under the button layer.
this is exactly how we do this design. Yeah. Dev.
Another thing, I'm sure that this was already done in terms of development, but for designers, we recently got introduced to individual strokes. Say, suppose I want to add a stroke on the bottom or on the top only, right? Before under Figma, I could add a stroke, but it would apply to all sides by default. Here, this is how it works. Like by default, it will apply to all sides. Now, what if I wanted, like, I want to have this as a divide on the bottom? So I'll just click on the individual strokes and select bottom, and the stroke will have itself only on the bottom side.
I always thought that this was already there
Ha,
in
this was already
design,
there. Yeah,
but
yeah. I think because Figma is working, I mean, trying to get designers closer to developers, they are introducing all these features.
yeah, and most of those things like are designed and used in your like component based coding style, like where like in React we have components that take in properties, and
Hmm.
in Figma also you have properties, and you can directly map everything, and bringing whatever web has like the CSS styling in web to your Figma design. It makes a lot of sense, like how developers and designers do both will think in the same direction and will be aware of what is possible and what isn't possible, and
Right,
what are the issues that you will face while building a particular design. uh, this I think this will reduce that a lot, because before I need to explain to the designers like, yeah, I can't do this actually. It's not possible, or it's like it's a bit tricky, or
hmm.
it's not required. So all
Right,
those things are sorted, I think. Now.
right, right. And also, what stage do you think developers should get involved in the design phase?
I think like both should work together, because developer have some perspective of like as a user as well, and like I'm sure designers do their research and then design, but what like on the accessibility front, right?
Hmm.
As a developer, I am creating an app, and I have the idea like what it should do and what it's doing and how the user will interact with it, and what
Right.
are the core points that like maybe I'm using some library that has some bug, right?
Hmm.
And some feature or some particular thing that the designer is asking for isn't available. So maybe we can both brainstorm and like come to a conclusion like what else we can do, and doing that in the initial like in the design phase. I think that makes a lot of sense for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And also for designers, they have to make sure that there are certain features which can be done by developers and certain features that cannot be done by developers,
Yeah.
right? So designers have to make sure that everything is in line with what developer does.
Yeah, because there's a lot of creativity in designers, and uh, like everything can't be applied for like in web, or
Hmm.
even if in mobile it's a lot of things that is available on web, but it isn't available on native mobiles.
Right.
So that's also there. Might you want to add something in this?
Yeah, it's just that, yeah, we are talking about when developers should get involved. I think like this, then that discussion goes more towards design systems, I guess. And for design systems, you always say that everyone should get involved from the
Hmm.
beginning,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? When like product person or designers, developers, all the stakeholders, because design system is something which is going to be used across the organization. It is going to define your brand. It's like you have to consider a lot of things: design guidelines, design principles, and your obviously like for different component libraries, as Rohit said, like if something is possible on this platform or not, things like that. Accessibility, for example.
Hmm.
So, yeah. I think if we're talking about accessibility, can we look into how we uh, maintain that in our Figma file? Like mainly, I think visual accessibility or even some UX patterns for
Yeah.
better accessibility, and then how we map those over to our code.
Right. In terms of design, we have two things, right? First is the state, where we have introduced the focus state, right? To have users understand better where or which stage or which component they are on. Right. So here on the under state, we include the active state, right? And the other thing is the foundation itself, the color, on how it works. Under native base file that we have published under the Figma community, we have actually checked all the colors by WCAG 3.0, right? Which means that so if you see a line here, this row here, anything below 60 is a bad color contrast, right? So all these colors, it will not, like anything on 50, say 39, 27, 18, and 12 won't go well with black color, right? And anything which is on top of 50 is a good accessibility. So 63, 75, 80, and 89, right? So for every colors there might be different conditions on how the color ratio works. So suppose if the color is very light, this you can't see anything here, probably it's just zero, and because this is very light, and then the color that you're using on top of this is also very light. So we have to make sure that the contrast between the foreground and the background is maximum, right? 99 is 100 is the maximum here. So this is the best contrast ratio that you'll ever find, right? And vice versa for the other end also. 89 is the white color contrast between the text and the background here, right? Anything that falls in between, we'll have to make sure that they are used carefully, because there are different strategies on how to use them, right? Say for primary color, you can't use a very light color, so you can use 63, but it might be very light for primary color. So you'll probably use 75 or 83, which is a little darker than the default one, or the average one, which is 60. Right, so the based on functionality, we have this different colors here with the ratios. Also, WCAG 3 2.0, which is currently used, they use a contrast ratio, which is 1 is to 4.5, the standard one. But right now, we are also exploring 3.0, which instead of calculating just the foreground and the background color, just calculating, like instead of just calculating this color, the text color and the background color, the system actually calculates what's around them, right? So there might be cases where the text is very light or it's getting disturbed by what's around this, right? So the system is working in such a way that it also calculates what is around this. It'll calculate the text contrast of this or this or this, and it'll give me a number here, a value here.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And we also use this contrast ratio to warn about accessibility violations in our code, right, Rohit?
Yeah, so many people complained about that too, but yeah, it's a requirement and
Right.
it should be followed. So
So we in our code also we are compliant with WCAG 2
Hmm.
now.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and this is the exact like whatever it's there in this Figma file,
Yeah.
that's in our code.
Right.
Okay. So Probin, do you have something else, or can we just talk about more?
I have nothing. I just want to understand, like, what does developer actually require from designers? Because there are two things, right? Designers can provide them spec sheet like this if they're not very good with Figma. But if a developer is keen on learning Figma, how it works, they can also go to inspect and like use red lines to inspect things. So how does it work for you? Do you prefer using a spec sheet like this, or do you actually prefer using a Figma file itself, the inspect feature, and click on each element and see how it inspects?
I think Rohit would
Yeah.
be.
So it like this question is based on the timeline, right? And if the designers are like, if you have the bandwidth to have create a spec sheet, then
Hmm.
definitely spec sheet gives you more details upfront without much interaction, and like I can directly switch between tabs and like write the code, and I can see like this has a padding of 4px, and I can directly add that. While although inspect provides me a lot of control, but it requires a lot of time, like not a lot of time, but yeah, there are a few instances that you like, you need the control, but you need the ease of spec sheet, right?
Right.
And so it's it depends on person to person, team to team, and the time to time. So
Right.
there's no fixed answer to this question.
Right. Like you mentioned about timeline, right? It vice versa for designers, because develop or designers have to spend time on making spec sheet, and for developer they'll have to spend
Yeah,
time on understanding how the
both
feature
are
looks like.
inversely proportional.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, but I think the spreadsheet is still very useful. This
Hmm.
you can just
Actually, spec sheet can be used in your documentation, right? And like if we have the same thing for native base, and we can directly add the anatomy of the every component on the documentation, and user can upfront see like okay, this component has a padding of this much, or
Right.
it has a margin, whatever property there is. So
Right.
this really helps in a lot of places. But again, time is the enemy.
okay. I think one last thing that comes to my mind is how we use tokens or foundation tokens basically in all of our components and how developers can see those. Have you already covered that? I don't think.
Yes, we did cover initially, so I'll just go through it again, very brief. So every color that you add here, so suppose I'll just copy this first and show you. So suppose this is a color, right? Right now it's linked to primary 50, but by default, if I'm not doing anything, just applying hex code, I'll see it like this with the color code here, right? To add this to the color style or to make them a token, I'll say make them a color style, add here, and I'll just name them by what it should be, primary, and and then it gets added to the color token here on the color style here, primary 10. Same thing for textiles also. By default, there won't be any styling added. Like if you just drag any text here and say text one, text two. By default, it'll show okay. By default, it'll show like this with all the properties. Right, to add this to a token, I'll first customize the properties according to how I want the test to look like. They are the thickness, they are the font sizes, there's also the line height, and there is letter spacing, which basically spaces the individual letters, right? And a few settings that you could apply, like the alignment, the fixed width, or the auto height. Right? And after this is like if after you have set this, you can do the same thing that we do for colors. Like click on this and add it to a text style and name them according to how you want the text style to be. Once this is added, you will find it on the right panel as token. Every time I use uh, like everyone I want to use this, I can just scroll down and see where or what name I've put it by and click on that.
That makes sense. And we can also see this while inspecting. Like we will see the tokens.
Yeah, right. For developers, I'm not sure if they inspect this. No, they can't see under inspect the colors, but they can actually see. Yeah, they can see all the colors here. But can they? I'll just check here. No, yeah, they can see all the color styles here for developers as well. All the tokens here.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very useful for design systems.
I think we have a question. So,
Yeah.
how to create, for example, a login screen using this workflow in Figma?
Using
It's using the workflow that we were talking about, like the token.
right, right. So Figma will have to first see what are the component that is used to make a login page, right? They can be buttons, they can be input field. So first you would obviously need a frame of say iPhone 8, because we use the smallest screen size possible. And here you would only search for token, also the component that you would use here. Say I want buttons, I would search buttons here, and everything, all the components are coming from native base. So I'll use native base component. I'll just drag and drop here. Say primary button. I might need input field, so I'll say input field. and put out one of the input field that's using native ways. And once I have the components, right, this components are already linked to what we use on native ways. So have this as a login button. I rename them here, call them login.
So in developer terms, you are basically importing components and
Yeah,
using
right,
them in your solution.
right. Basically it's all component based. For anything outside, like if you want to add extra things which is not a component, you could play around with shapes here. We have certain shapes to maybe say if you want to use a rectangle to add an image on the top, you can do that. Or if you want to add a color, or sorry, a header, you can just click on text and say login here, and have use the token, the text token to assign one of them. So I'll probably
But
add
then
this use.
this is not really recommended, right? If we are following a design system, right, we try to use the existing components that we have.
So for text, I think there are tokens only, right?
Yeah, text.
Variants.
Yeah, for text we have tokens, but
Yeah.
the things like, let's say, a box or something.
Ha.
Yeah.
For blocks as well, yeah. But we don't have token right now under the Figma design file. So we'll
Hmm.
probably just use the custom one.
Because I think Figma box and like if I consider native base, like because it's a native base UI kit, right?
Hmm.
So I think box and Figma, the box that Figma provides, are basically identical. So even in this, I will get the colors and the every token that we have in the foundation layer, right?
Yeah. So basically,
So
it is recommended that you
yeah,
use the tokens from, like, even if you don't have the component
yeah,
available, the exact component available in Figma, uh, you use the corresponding component and use the proper tokens from the design system, from
Hmm.
foundation, right? Like all the
Right.
height, width, and everything that will come from foundation, I think.
Right. Right. But right now on Figma, they don't allow us to have anything other than the shadows, typeset, and colors under tokens. That's the only thing that we can add right now. So if even if I want to change the height and width of this, there's no possible way I can use tokens from here. It has to be custom only. I can change the color if I want to, but nothing more than that.
Okay, so yeah,
feature
that's,
request in Figma.
yeah, feature
Hmm.
request. Okay, great. Yeah, I think this should answer the question. Yeah, if we have any more questions, keep it coming. Other than that, yeah, I would like to mention one thing. As we already have a lot of tokens defined in our foundation here in Figma, right? So when we, let's say, make some changes for a new version of the design system, uh, for now, I think what we are doing is um, modifying these token values manually in our new version of native base, let's say,
Right.
in a component library. But it is possible to use Figma's API, developer API, to extract these and like have an automated process of extracting these tokens and updating native base theme file for a new version, right?
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think we're doing that right now, but
but
let's see in future maybe.
Right.
then that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Explore.
So we don't have to do the work twice, once in Figma and in our theme file. That's what we are trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, Also, I think Figma is providing APIs and like for style.
Yeah, we have a lot of good APIs in Figma. I think, uh, and also a lot of good plugins that are possible because of those APIs. So, Praveen, do you use some plugins regularly, like any of them?
Oh yes, we do. We do use lots of plugins. So under a plugin section, you might find all of them that we use currently. Depending on function, there are few of them that we really like. So suppose to change, like if I want to add an image, I would just click on this. There's a plugin called Unsplash. So I'll just click on that. Have this pop up here, and if I want an animal on this frame here, I'll just select the frame and add this images here. And this all open source, free to use images. This is one. There are more also. Um, Lazy load is something that I've recently looked at. So suppose if I want a loader screen for this, or a backbone like a gray color loading thing, this is for that. So here this automatically generates the loading screen for this page. Um, we use multiple plugins to use check the color contrast for accessibility. So we have that. We have plugin to change or to choose the color or generate the color. We have color shades. And so you just type in your primary color, and then the system will tell you all the color shades that's possible with this.
Yeah, I think these are really useful then.
Yeah, it depends on team also, like what they want to do and how they want to use plugins. And there are multiple plugins that's available on Figma community.
Yeah. Okay. So do you guys have anything else to add?
No, not
Like I'm thinking like Figma will replace developers after some time.
Yeah, it's
Only did everyone has to become a designer to create front-end screens for.
or we'll just lose our jobs.
But yeah, we everyone needs like you need to have the understanding to use Figma as well, right? Understanding of front end, like how relative layout works, and how you design something, because everything is like both like in designing in Figma and actual coding, it has become very similar right now. Like how Probin was designing that login screen. So, like I mentioned, he's importing things and placing those in a box and then designing it. So,
Yeah, at least in terms of UI, the
yeah,
tools coming really close, be it developer tool or a designer tool.
yep.
And yeah, I think that's what we're doing. Like we're moving towards a low code or no code um, solution. I hope we get that soon. That that is very exciting.
Yeah. Probin, anything else to add? If you want.
no, nothing.
I think we don't have more questions.
Yeah. So I thought this was a great session, very informative. We learned a lot. I learned a lot. Like I didn't know a lot about Figma, and I think Robin uh, showed us a few good things, and like I really learned from that.
Yeah,
It was useful for other viewers also. So that's all from our side. Have a good Friday.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all.
Have
See
a
you.
good Friday.
Bye.
Bye bye.